Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Things are happening at a breakneck pace these days. Josh just sent me a story, and I hit print, and I ran in here to shoot a video about it because this is the kind of stuff where you go, wait, was this really necessary? It was. From MSN.com. The Department of Transportation has issued an order to the airlines telling them that refunds are not optional for canceled flights. They have to give refunds. And it turns out that up until about an hour ago, there were airlines going, oh, we're not sure if we're going to pay refunds. We canceled your flight. We parked the planes. We sent the pilots all home. We might not give you your money back. Well, Zach Wichter wrote the story. The Department of Transportation issued a stark message to airlines that serve the U.S. on Friday, reminding carriers they must provide cash refunds to travelers whose flights are canceled by the airline. Seems pretty straightforward, okay? So even the title of the issue was weighty. In its enforcement notice, the DOT said carriers have a long-standing obligation to provide a prompt refund to a ticketed passenger when the carrier cancels the passenger's flight or makes a significant change in the flight schedule and the passenger chooses not to accept the alternative offered by the carrier. Demand for air travel has plummeted recently, and airlines around the world have been strapped for cash as they're trying to meet payroll and figure out what they do because their revenues have gone kaplooey. As a result, many carriers have tried to hold on to cash by issuing vouchers for future travel. And that's not what the law says. The law says you give a refund. A refund is cash. They didn't buy it with a voucher, did they? Well, you got to give them back what they paid you. That shift has drawn an increasing number of complaints from consumers, underscoring the growing attention on the issue. A group of U.S. senators weighed in on the subject this week in open letters to airline executives telling them they needed to change those policies. And the Department of Transportation, of course, has the power to step in and say, change your policy. Now, the DOT is making it clear that even under the extraordinary circumstances these days, that's no excuse for airlines to flout the law, and that their doing so has not gone unnoticed. The quote is, the obligation of airlines to provide refunds, including the ticket price and any optional fee charged for services a passenger is unable to use, does not cease when flight disruptions are outside of the carrier's control. The department said in a statement, the Aviation Enforcement Office will monitor airlines' refund policies and practices and take enforcement action as necessary. The refund regulations apply even when just one segment of an itinerary is canceled, so long as every leg is on the same ticket. The requirements to refund passengers includes refunding all unused segments of a single ticket when a carrier cancels or makes a significant change to one or more segment of the passenger's itinerary and the passenger chooses not to travel. That's a DOT spokesperson speaking via email. So again, getting back to one of my mantras, if you paid for it and didn't get what you paid for, you should get your money back. And the Department of Transportation agrees. The department did recognize, however, that during these unusual times, airlines may struggle to comply immediately. In the memo, the agency suggested that there would be some leeway in allowing the carriers to have some time, though it did not specify exactly how much slack airlines might get. But the airlines had been thinking they could ride this thing out using some of the money that they kept from their customers as a cushion. Give the money back. So with the warning issued Friday, that's today, a number of airlines might want to reconsider their existing policies. Among them is JetBlue. It recently announced a temporary policy that would bar passengers from a refund even if their flight is canceled, so long as the carrier could accommodate them within 24 hours of their originally scheduled itinerary. But that policy is only in effect until April 15th. It's unclear whether the DOT would tolerate even a temporary move not to follow the refund rules. United has also drawn criticism for making refunds harder to get. Most recently, the airline said it would only issue travel credits for itineraries that would usually qualify for refunds, and those credits would become refundable if they went unused after a year. So in other words, you get a voucher for a year, and a year from now we'll give you your money back. Huh? Who makes this stuff up? On the international front, Air France and KLM, citing the high degree of uncertainty surrounding air transportation and the vast number of requests for refunds, have said they would not issue refunds for canceled flights during these times. Those carriers will likely now have to adjust that policy at least on their services to and from the U.S. following the DOT's new guidance. And, that's one of those issues you're always going to encounter because many people simply fly between places in the United States. So you take a Delta flight or a Northwest Airlines flight, and you fly from Detroit to Minneapolis and back, right? So you have a domestic carrier and flying here. What happens though, like you fly somebody else, British Air to London and back? Well, the interesting thing is that if they want to continue doing business in the United States where one end of that flight is located, they got to play by our rules. And so, there might be a little bit, I suspect a little bit longer for them to comply, but they're going to have to come around. But the other companies who, will give you a voucher, what's that all about? But you understand, there's going to be a bunch of weird stuff like this happening. And we've heard a bunch of it already, the gyms and physical fitness places that say, oh, we accidentally took some money out of your account for the month that we're closed. We'll credit that to you after we reopen. That's a problem. And I've also heard another complaint, and again, I might do a whole video on this one, but there are companies out there that resell tickets. So you want to go see a band play, right? And the band sells out instantly because they're popular. So you look for tickets, but you can't buy tickets from the actual venue. But you find a ticket reseller that says, "Oh, we're like we're Airbnb, but for tickets." So they find people who've got the tickets, and then they pass them and they sell them to you, and they take a slice, right? In the old days, there used to be policies where they would say that if an event got canceled, they'd see to it that the refunds got taken care of, and so on. Well, it turns out there's been mass cancellations of events in venues that seat more than, a few people. And as I mentioned before, my favorite band, Blue October, had to cancel several months of tour dates coming up because they just cancel them, And that's been happening a lot. And I actually saw an article recently where one of those big ticket resellers came right out and said, something? We can't accommodate all of the cancellations that are going on, so just we're out of here. And they just washed their hands of it. And so the weird thing is that if you've got tickets to a show from a venue, you might be able to get a refund from that venue depending on how that works. But of course, the problem is that you didn't buy the tickets at face value. You bought the tickets through this third-party vendor. And the third-party vendor took a fee out of it. And then also at one point in time, they had the leverage to get a refund from the party that sold the tickets. So the weird part about this is suppose someone buys the tickets from the venue at face value, flipped them through the third-party ticket seller to you. You paid full value for them, thinking you could get a refund if it got canceled, and now you're out of luck. So the weird part about it is that there's not a specific federal agency overseeing third-party ticket sellers. Federal Trade Commission, maybe? But the question, of course, is what's going to happen? I don't know. But the good news is the Department of Transportation can oversee the airlines. And the airlines are huge corporations right now that are, as you might imagine, in Washington, D.C., with their hands out saying, we need money to stay alive. We need bailouts. We need some of that money, that rescue stimulus money that you are taking out of the Treasury there. And we need a lot of it to keep our airlines afloat when this all ends. And so they've got leverage in that respect, but they've also got leverage simply in the fact that the Department of Transportation oversees the ability of a company to fly commercially in the United States of America. So if you had a flight that got canceled, that voucher nonsense, no, you'll be getting a refund. How long it'll take, we don't know, but you'll get the refund. But that's good news. As for the people holding the tickets, that's another problem altogether. Like I said, maybe a future video. But otherwise, Josh, thanks for the story. MSN.com's got the main story as well. Zach Wichter wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Well, you know what they say. I was hoping you knew.